Thank you, Bryce. Welcome, everybody, to this Sunday morning service here at Salt Lake Christian Church on this Palm Sunday. The story I have for you this morning is from the Armstrong pamphlets that we gave out about a month ago. I figured it was appropriate since we're taking the offering today. And so most of the offerings that go for Armstrong go towards church planting, if you didn't know. And they have several stories on their website, and I picked one of those to tell you this morning. And so, one of the missionaries that they support is a church planter named Troy, who was out on his mission attempting to create a new church. And he had gained several members, and he was establishing this church. However, they had no place to consistently meet. Yet, at the same time, in that same town, there was a small local church who, over the last several years, had been dwindling and slowly dying off. And their membership had dwindled down to just a few faithful members, most of which who were seniors. However, they were doing everything they could to keep their doors open, but they needed to hire a landscaper. And so, one fateful Sunday morning, after their service, they had a church meeting where they voted to hire Troy to be their landscaper. And they had no idea that he was a missionary at this time. But as they got to know him, and he was coming to their church and taking care of the outside, their yard and whatnot, they got to know this man, who he was, and they found out that he was a church planter and that he had a need, that the church he was founding and putting together needed a place to meet. And so, through much prayer and the working of the Holy Spirit, those few members at that small, dwindling church came together and agreed to have Troy come and use their church for his new church plant. And so, Troy's members that he was gathering began coming and became members of this little, small church. And they changed the name of the church to Cross Community Church. And many people in the community began showing up one Sunday after another. And it got to the point that people began driving past this church that had always had just an empty parking lot, even on Sunday mornings. And they started to see more vehicles there, and more vehicles and more vehicles, to the point that the parking lot eventually became packed at this little church. And this continued to draw in more people who came to that church and heard the gospel spread. And so, through the blessings of the Armstrong offering, God worked a miracle using his missionary Troy to revive that small, dying church. And God worked a miracle by breathing new life into that church and raising it from the dead, as only he can do. So, when you are giving your offerings today, when we're taking the Armstrong offering, pray that God would use this offering to bless his kingdom and to spread his gospel where it needs to be, where he will use it. So thank you. Let's bring the music up.